Hi, my name is Drei Casino, and this is my student video reflection for the Module 12 assignment, The Future Coder. So for the first question, will future programmers still need to learn how to code, or will AI tools like GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT make that unnecessary? I think that future programmers will still need to learn how to code even as AI gets more and more advanced and capable through the coming years. As AI is really useful as it speeds things up with repetitive tasks like writing the same structure of code over and over for, say, a website with multiple lines of text, and it's the same structure over and over again. But it doesn't really replace the actual understanding of what your code is doing and what it is actually for. You still need to know the basics, the core fundamentals, like how the languages work, like Python or C++, and how the code is properly structured, and you have a solid foundation for your projects. That way, you're the one doing the thinking, and you're just using AI as a tool for the more tedious parts of your project. And also, when something breaks, debugging is way easier if you actually understand your code instead of just guessing or vibe coding. The main benefit of using AI in programming, like I mentioned earlier, is it speeds things up quite a bit, and it helps a lot in the more repetitive parts and the more tedious parts of coding. However, another thing that AI is extremely helpful with is it helps beginners to understand code better, as you could ask AI, for example, like ChatGPT, an extremely specific piece of code, and it'll explain it clearly on how it works so that us beginners can have a clearer and better understanding of how that code actually works. But on the other hand, a major risk of using AI in programming is becoming overly reliant on it. And an example on it would be hopping onto ChatGPT, describing exactly what you want that code to do, and copy pasting that code that AI generated without you actually understanding what the code is doing. This will make debugging the code very tricky as you yourself don't know how the code works. So my way of committing to learning how to code is to really focus on mastering the fundamentals, because I believe that most complex things are just built from simple fundamentals stacked on top of each other. I also think it's important to find some sort of enjoyment in learning, because if you don't enjoy it, it's really hard to stay consistent and actually improve on what you're doing. Then we move into struggling, debugging, and actually spending time figuring out your code. It's just part of the learning process because it forces you to really understand what you're doing instead of just guessing. And eventually, when you get your code up and running, it's working properly, it feels very rewarding and worth it at the end. So for the last couple questions, what does vibe coding mean to you? And why is it important to move beyond this if you want to grow in this field? So from my understanding, vibe coding is where you don't have a clear understanding of the fundamental parts, like the structure and logic of the language you are using, and simply trying different things until your code works properly. You could end up consulting generative AI for this and copy and paste the code given to you in order to patch up your work. It could help in a rush where you have to quickly fix something, but it is not an ideal coding habit for any programmer, as I see it as a bit lazy and very risky, as it could lead to big problems long term. If you rely on this, you're not really understanding or learning what your code is doing, which is the opposite of what you want if you wanted to grow and nurture as a programmer.